Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this RTS Anatomy of a Hit Love Island special. I'm Ria Hebden, and it's my absolute pleasure to be your host today as we get under the skin to see what was it that made this multi-award-winning show the most watched and talked about show of this last summer. Right, so tonight I'm joined by an esteemed panel of creatives from ITV Studios and Motion Content Group who co-produce the ITV show, including someone that I'm sure you all recognise and love, the fabulous presenter Caroline Flack, who hosts Love Island and the weekly live sister show After Sun. Woohoo! Congratulations on your engagement, by the way.
Thanks.
So here's how tonight's going to go. I'll interview the panel over the next hour, breaking down the various elements such as casting, production, digital marketing and brand partnerships, which combined, listen to this, led to an average viewership of 2.5 million views across the third series and over 2 billion Twitter impressions on social media, which is pretty much, that's pretty incredible, isn't it? We'll then have 15 minutes for the audience to ask questions before wrapping for networking drinks. Now, we'd of course love for you all to take pictures and tweet about tonight's event on social media, so feel free to do so, but use the hashtags Love Island and RTS events. So, let's meet our panellists. First up, we've got Angela Jain, who's the MD of ITV Studios and the former head of digital channels who commissioned the show. We've got Kenny England, who's a senior digital producer on Love Island. We've then got Ella Umansky, who's the head of format support for ITV Studios. That she's part of the team that's responsible for taking the Love Island format to sell internationally. And then we've got Tom Gould, who's the executive producer of Love Island, and he's done lots of interesting stuff. We were talking about it earlier. He's worked on Come Dine With Me, Dancing on Ice, Pride of Britain Awards, and lots of other stuff. So, before we start the Q&A, we thought it'd be good to take a look back at last series and the highlights. So let's play that.
In the summer of 2017, the Love Island Villa threw open its doors to a brand new load of singles.
I just wanna be part of your...
They were sexy, ready for romance, and really good at standing up in jeeps. And from the moment our singletons walked through the villa's surprisingly large door, Love Island had the nation gripped.
Are you ready for love? We're ready!
Yay!
Night after night, there was drama.
So silly, but I'm really mad.
There were revelations.
Remember the band called the Blazing Squad?
There was emotion.
All the fucking shit that comes out of your mouth all the time, Chris!
There were confessions.
Do you remember the Blazing Squad?
Oh my days, no way.
There was passion.
Because of a certain gigantic bellend. Mate, what are you calling a bellend? I'm calling you a bellend.
There were shocks.
Remember the Blazing Squad?
Fuck off!
And there was romance.
Will you be my girlfriend?
Yes, I will.
Yes, Love Island had it all, and as the temperature rose in paradise, the ratings soared, with 16 to 34 viewing up 174%, not forgetting the 75 million ITV Hub views of the series. What do you think of that, lads?
A little bit.
Exactly. Everybody was watching Love Island, and everybody wanted to have their say, triggering a whopping 2 billion impressions on Twitter. Amber, I said 2 billion! That's better. In summer 2017, Love Island made front page news. It was the talk of daytime telly.
Let's talk Love Island.
Love Island. Love Island.
Love Island. Love Island.
Even the world of showbiz was 100% legit hooked. Rock legends watched it.
Adele, for one,
I
Liam
know.
Gallagher, so many unlikely people watching Love Island.
I don't know what you're fucking missing, man. Love Island's where it's at.
Grime stars appeared in it.
Oh my days.
And Jeremy Corbyn campaigned for it. That's 2 elections you lost, Jeremy, because after 7 glorious weeks, the nation finally chose their winners. Amber, a dancer from Wales, and Kem, a hairdresser from Romford. Romford!
Kevin Amber!
And ITV2 were also big winners because Love Island's stunning success meant for the first time ever, they were crowned the biggest digital channel for 16 to 34s, with an impressive 5.7% share. Guys, any last thoughts?
Every fucking person in this place fancies me.
The struggle's real. See you next year, everybody!
Perfect!
That's a lot of pressure for this series.
Yeah.
what a show. So I think it makes sense to start off with the commissioning process. So Angela, my first question to you would be, what was it about Love Island that made you think, I must commission this show?
So it's not as straightforward as that. So just to put it into context, so obviously the job that I'm doing now is not the job that I was doing then. So 4 years ago, God, I can't remember, it might even be longer, 4.5, 5 years ago. In a previous life, I worked at Channel 4 and I was a commissioner for Big Brother for about 6 or 7 years. And I really understood the value of having a really chunky show like that and what it does to your schedule. So I was running ITV2 at the time, and in my head, I was trying to nick Big Brother, but I couldn't nick it. It wasn't for nicking because it was on Channel 5. And so I thought what I need is something big and of scale and volume, multiple episodes, stripped across a week, and what could that show be? So I sort of had a mini tender process to not that many companies, a handful of companies, and asked them to all come in and pitch. And Love Island was one of them. And in the end, I went for Love Island because I thought our audience would mean something to them. And of course, exactly the opposite was the case, because it meant nothing to the 16 to 34 audience, and it only meant something to me. So yeah, I perversely commissioned it for all the wrong reasons. But what I knew was if we could get it right, and that's the position we're in now, it could be ITV2's Big Brother. And of course, last year, it actually beat Big Brother. So that's sort of how it came about. So it wasn't sort of directly pitched to me, but it was part of a tender process.
And so what was the thinking behind it and the objectives that you wanted to achieve by commissioning it?
Well, I suppose I've probably told you from a channel perspective what it was, and Tom can probably tell you from a more creative perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, much like Angela, we sort of thought that the name and the legacy of the series from 2005, 2006 would bring some audience to it. But actually, when we started to think about what the show should be in 2015, we knew that it had to be something completely different. So basically, it is only in name the sort of
yeah, that's completely
successor.
right. Because in the end, we just said we've got the name.
Yeah.
Now everything else that went before, let's just throw it all out, all away.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Caroline, what about for you? What was it that attracted you to presenting the show?
It was instant, actually. It was such a... I remember it so well. I was in the Groucho Club in London, and my agent said, I've got a couple of offers for you. And one of them was X Factor. And it was when I got offered the X Factor to do the main show. Yeah. And the other one was Love Island. But he said, you won't be able to do both because they run at the same time. And I said, well, I can't really not do the X Factor. I've been, I'd done X Factor for years. I said, but I'm not doing Love Island because it was one of my favourite shows when it was on. And I think as a host, to host something that you would also watch religiously, that's the dream. You want to be a viewer as well. So we worked it out, and I begged Simon Cowell, and he promised me a jet, actually, to get back and forth. That jet turned into a 4 a.m. EasyJet flight from Manchester every week. And so it was the love of the show beforehand, and it was the same team I'd done The Jungle with, so I knew the production team were amazing, and it was just, as a presenter, it was my perfect job. So there was no question about
I don't think Caroline knows this, but you were our first and only choice.
Was I?
Yeah.
Literally from the get-go, we said we wanted you.
What would have happened if I said no?
I would have stalked you. Made you say yes. You were our first choice, wasn't she? The first person that came.
Yeah.
The first person we wanted.
So Tom and Angela, what do you think are the key elements of the series that you think is what pulls the audience in every time?
I think that the fact that it's so relatable, I think the fact that the audience watch it and they recognise scenarios on the show from their own lives, I think that's a big part of it. I think it feels authentic. I think that particularly the 16 to 34 audience in particular are incredibly savvy and incredibly aware of anything that feels fake. I think the unpredictability of the show, we work incredibly hard to sort of keep that unpredictability going, to kind of keep a constant stream of drama going in the show. I think that attracts people. And I think the casting, I think if you get the casting right, and I think Series 3, we really did get the casting right, and we took everything that we learned from Series 1 and 2, and in Series 3, I think that's what brought people to it.
Yeah, sort of spare Tom's blushes. It is the most magnificent production team, and what is really incredible is the way that they react to the stories as they unfold, and so that helps reinforce that unpredictability. And I think another key element is the sort of the wit and the humour and what Ian's voiceover brings to it. Because actually what was always in my head when we first talked about it was, having worked on Big Brother for such a long time, and Marcus's voice on it was incredible and really straight and without personality, that what we wanted to do was the complete opposite. What we wanted was a personality to the show, and that's what Ian would bring. And I think that really helps, you know, bring the humour. I think also we just don't patronise the audience at all. They're part of the show, and we're responding to what they say. And so if they don't like something, we respond to it. And if, you know, we acknowledge it in voiceover, and we say things like, oh, the producers have only spent 3 hours putting 14,000 candles down. And it gets a big laugh, and everyone acknowledges this is a TV programme. And so we sort of feel like you're taking the viewers along on the ride with you, and I think that's really important. But the reactivity, as Tom said, the sort of unpredictability, hence why the Flack attack, and you don't know when Caroline's coming. All of that.
And we don't either.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Genuinely, we don't. Genuinely, we don't.
Talk me through the casting of it, though, because how do you get these fantastic characters, and how do you also
it's a hard job, isn't it,
them?
It's a really,
really difficult job. You have to meet a lot of very good-looking people.
Do you get them to do like workout tests of flexing their muscles and stuff in the room?
Not that often, no. It is, and I think what makes it harder as well is that in the back of your mind you do have to be thinking we are matchmaking, so that sort of has to be there. And as with any reality show, you are looking for those big personalities, you're looking for people who you think will engage the audience and take them along with them as they watch their love lives unfold, but you're also looking for people who you know are going to be, or you think are going to be, open and honest about their feelings, and that's actually much harder than it sounds. And I think again it's that what we've learned over 3 series is the more relatable, the more recognisable, and I think that Camilla last year, Montana last year were real examples of, they weren't your archetypal reality show contributors, and I think if they'd walked into the audition room in series 1 we probably wouldn't have put them on the show, but it just felt like they would bring something different, and I think it really brought a different audience last year.
So what elements of the previous series are you going to bring to this one? Can you tell anything?
Like an amazing... Well, the thing is, I think we all feel confident. We sort of know what we're doing, so the worst thing we could do is change it all.
Okay.
Because, you know, we want to give the viewers more of what they're expecting, but equally, you don't want to deliver the same show again, and by definition, having a different cast will create different stories, and of course we'll have some tricks up our sleeves and we'll react to you know, narratives as they unfold. But the worst mistake I think we could make is to just change it all.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about social media, because obviously that played a massive part in that, and Kenny, you're an expert in this field. How much did social media, no pressure...
Well, he's the youngest person on the panel. That definitely makes him an expert.
But we can talk about that as well, because I think this is interesting. So how much did social media influence the content of the show, and what do you think the overall success of the show?
I mean, it's almost a question more for Tom if we're talking about the influence that social media had. What we kind of done was we'd always make sure that the door was open and we'd wander in. Literally, that's as simple as it was. No set-up meetings, nothing. We're just wandering and go, you'll never guess what everyone's talking about. Because it was never the thing that you would always think that it was going to be, which is really difficult. There were so many times you'd come back and something would have been trending. You're like, why on earth were people talking about that? I've got no idea. But you do realise they're really into this storyline, and it would actually then form part of the show.
And that feedback from you guys, I've never worked on a show where the digital team have been so firmly embedded in the show, and it was the best thing that we did, that they were out in Mallorca with us, and that, as Kenny says, that dialogue is brilliant for us. And there's so few shows where you have that feedback going on as an ongoing process through a production, and what it allows you to do is sort of see where the audience think you're going to go, and sometimes you go there, like in series 2 when there was a character called Marlin who had left, and she was with Terry, and he had then got with someone else, and there was a real appetite on social media for Marlin to basically get to confront Terry, and we were a bit, I'm not sure this is the right thing to do, but because there was that appetite there, and we saw, it was like social media was sort of allowing us to do it, we thought, okay, we'll do it, and it worked, and it was the highest rated show of that series. But also the opposite is true, that because we're trying to keep it unpredictable, and because we're trying to stay ahead of what the viewers expect and what the islanders expect, when you see where social media think you're going, it allows you to do the exact opposite as well. So in both those ways, it's really incredibly helpful.
You know, people talk about 360 commissioning. Honestly, that is the real definition of it. It's just an open door between everyone who's got a stake in the show, and it's a feedback loop, and it just goes round and round. And because it's a 24/7 production, and we're making a new show every single day, we can absolutely show the impact of that. It's incredible, really.
And also, you've then got those exclusives on Aftersun for you to be able to discuss. You
Absolutely.
know, do you feel that, because obviously you're so close to the fans as well, do you feel that it's almost like your duty on Aftersun to make sure you ask the questions that the fans want asking?
100%.
Yeah.
In fact, we use Twitter for that. We put the question out. What question do you want to know? What's the answers you want to know? And I wouldn't be the right host for it if I didn't ask those questions. You know, the big question last year was, did Mike sleep with Jess?
Yeah.
We still don't know. Because he won't tell us. But I had to go in there, and it was almost like, you know, I was just hammering until I got the answer out of him. And he nearly went. He nearly slipped. But we don't know. But I have to. That's my job, is to ask the questions the viewers want to know, or there'd be no point.
Yeah. And what about the app? Because that was quite key, wasn't it, in the success of the show this year?
I think the app is just a huge part of the show. It's great for us. When you're working on social media, you've got so much noise when you're trying to put out a message and you're trying to fight against people's family, friends, other brands, stuff like that. When you've got your app, you've got your condensed feed for the superfans who can consume everything that they want in the one place undistracted. The other really important thing that the app delivers is the ability to vote and impact on the show. And that's such an important part when you're watching and you've got your opinion, you feel you can actually have your voice heard. And that is, I'd say, one of the biggest parts.
Okay. Can you tell us about what the impact the series has had on the brands? Because I heard Little Birdie say that, you know, the branded bottles, the Love Island bottles.
Oh, amazing.
But didn't they sell out, like, within a week
amazing.
or something?
I
still haven't got mine.
Haven't you? Did you
I've been asking
Robert?
for
Somebody
free
nicked it.
series.
So I think, I don't know, shall I say? I don't know. Who's in the room? Okay, so it was somebody's clever idea to come up with a branded bottle.
It came from social media again.
Oh, did
It was
you?
another one. Everyone saying.
Okay, and so we all went, oh, well, yeah, there'll be some appetite. So 10,000 were manufactured, and within a week, was it?
It was less.
Maybe less.
Yeah.
10,000 had gone, and then we ran out of factories to produce the bloody bottles.
No.
And we couldn't keep up with demand
That is ridiculous.
quickly enough. And actually what that created, perversely, was this loop of scarcity, which meant it was more exciting. And anyway, we completely underestimated the demand of something as simple as that, but actually that feels totally tonally in keeping with the show. Doesn't feel like an add-on. Look, you know, the first series, you can get anyone near it. Third series, fourth series now that we're coming to, everyone wants to pile in. So the impact, if you go to Superdrug, they're as happy as Larry, because the impact of, you know, for Superdrug, for being their association with the show last year, has been phenomenal.
And what about the availability of the show being across lots of different platforms? Because obviously people could watch the show on linear television, but then they could watch it on the Hub, they could watch it on their phone, they could watch segments of it on Instagram and Twitter. Was that always part of the broader strategy, or did you adapt as you went along?
I think we did learn as we went along. I mean, the app in the first series wasn't what it is now. The app in the first series was basically just a voting platform. And I do, you know, I suppose in some ways the thing that I'm most proud of is that it's a show that has drawn an audience back to linear TV who perhaps were sort of scattering away from it. And I think the real reason for that interestingly, in series 1, there was our weekly live show out in Mallorca. And then in series 2, we took the decision to not have that so that we could be more flexible and reactive, and there wasn't a predictable format to it. And we thought that might actually sort of make people come to the show, to watch the show live more, because they wouldn't know when things were going to happen. But actually, I think it's social media, it's being part of the conversation that has drawn people to watch it live. And that then feeds the appetite to find other stuff on other platforms.
Yeah, but to Tom's point, you know, this is a real case study for all of those naysayers that say 16 to 34s don't watch telly. It's bollocks, isn't it? Because they're watching this.
Yeah. So what's your best advice to...
Sorry, I've been watching too much Love Island. I'll start saying Dick Sand soon. Or Garlico.
Ellie, obviously your role's about how you take this format to market internationally.
Yeah, it's how we steal their ideas and take it to the rest of the world.
Is it challenging, though, trying to sell that format internationally because it's a youth market on?
Well, it can. I mean, basically, obviously, these guys do an amazing job hitting that 16 to 34 demo. We don't need to do any work gathering those stats because it's there for us. It's on social media. It's all over the place. What we were working with was that, because obviously when we're launching it, our main focus is the format, so making an international version. We already have a market out there because we've sold, I think it's something like 15 territories have already bought the the UK version. But as a result, we now have to work quite hard to open up that market, simply because people hear 16 to 34s and they assume that that's only going to sit on a sort of a youth-skewed channel. So we've been working quite hard. I think it's something like 275% up on 34 plus was the last series of Love Island in the UK. So if we say that to other channels, we can then say, look, it's going to have a much broader demographic for you. So we've got Germany launched last year, coming back again in September, did fantastically well there. It was, you know, a bit like in the UK, it was their highest rated show on their hub equivalent, which is TV Now. It was up 77% on the slot average, all of that kind of stuff, which is great for us. We've got the Australian version launching on Sunday, which is really exciting. We've got the equivalent of Caroline out there already doing the rehearsals, which is
It's really hot.
She's definitely your equivalent then.
But basically, like, these guys have done the work. We just have to pick out the stories that we need to tell to our clients out there, because it can fit. It can fit for everybody. Everybody's watching this. You know, it's the one show that people sit down with their daughters and say, this is what I chat to my daughter about over dinner. They do that everywhere else as well.
Amazing. I think we've got a clip as well, which we can see. Can we play that?
Sie kamen als Singles.
Hallo!
Mit einem Traum.
Ich brauche einen richtigen Mann neben mir.
Die große Liebe.
Ich fühle mich richtig sicher bei ihr.
Wenn ich ihn küsse, vergesse ich alles rund um mich.
Ich weiß gar nicht, wohin mit meinen Gefühlen.
Und 50.000 Euro. Sie fanden sich.
Jetzt ist Barbie und Ken wieder vereint erstmal. Bitte meine Freundin sein.
Sie liebten sich.
Wenn er mich küsst, oh Gott, dann explodiere ich innerlich.
Das ist ein krasses Gefühl so.
Sie feierten sich. Sie stritten.
Ich rede einmal mit einer anderen und du drehst durch.
Das ist respektlos.
Nein, wir sind in der Villa.
Das ist respektlos.
Aber genau das hasse ich.
What the fuck going on, ey?
Bring mir mein Gepäck, ich verlasse die Villa jetzt.
Und sie litten.
Also ich halte nichts mehr von ihm, ganz einfach.
Es ist immer Höhenflug und dann wieder der Absturz.
Ja.
Ich habe überlegt, aber ich gehe nicht.
Du gehst nicht, das ist noch nicht das Ende.
Die einen fanden keinen Partner und mussten die Villa verlassen. Die anderen fanden ihr Liebesglück.
Wenn wir das hier schaffen, haben wir eine Zukunft zusammen.
We are able to recreate the brand.
That is amazing, because that just shows you how the format can travel.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. Because
you sort of look at it and it feels like, oh, Love Island.
We've got 4 this summer. We've got more coming. You know, we'll be able to announce that soon. But I mean, it's what you know, it's what you love, just in German.
The villa is literally a copy.
Yeah,
one
it's
in
literally down the
Mallorca.
road as well.
Okay, so how important is it to be able to sell a series like this to an international audience?
We're so lucky to have a format like this. I mean, it's great. It's really important for ITV as a whole because, you know, as a brand, it's something that can really define us. And I think it becomes sort of, a show like this becomes your calling card, really. But for us, it's our priority, it's our baby. And I think it's going to be, this is the year where we're really going to see it hopefully sort of become that global brand that I think it's already got the
It's important from a production perspective because the dream is you come up with a format that travels the world. Of course it is. You know, you come up with the next Come Dine With Me. So, of course, from that perspective, if you've got something that's good and that gets watched, obviously, around the world, then that's the dream, really.
Obviously, though, international budgets can be smaller, though, can't they? So, you know, how do you navigate these?
No, they're not smaller at all, are they?
Are they not?
They've got their own pot to work with, Angela. And I mean, basically, as you can see there, you know, it can be translated, it can be done in different locations to different budgets. And because it's a very flexible format, it's basically, we sell it as it's a kit of parts that you guys have developed in terms of production know-how and production like elements that you can bring to create that storyline. And that isn't particularly budget dependent. And as you can see there, it's a different villa. It looks as, well, I like to think it looks as glorious as your version, but we've got other versions around the world as well that are going to have a slightly different look and feel, but it's still going to be consistent with the brand. You know, it's pretty adaptable.
Cool. All right, well, let's talk some more about youth engagement and audience. What learnings did the series give you around the best way to target the youth market? Because you said before that your team's quite young. Do you have just loads of young people?
Because none of us are.
I'm sure we've got lots of young people in the audience that would love to join your team.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a very young team, and I think it's very important that the show talks to the audience in their own language.
Yeah.
So that's an important part of it.
I mean, like digitally, we really work hard on that tone of voice as well to make it feel relatable to the audience. You don't want someone that sounds like it could be their mum writing it.
No,
I'm like the oldest person on the team. Like, genuinely, we really work hard on it.
But I think you're right. The thing that we work really hard to do together as a whole is to not patronise the audience. That's the worst thing we could do. And actually, in a way, not keep thinking about it's a 16 to 34 audience. Keep the eye on the prize is making the best TV programme possible.
Yeah. Caroline, how do you feel like, obviously you've got such a massive influence, do you feel, not a pressure, but do you feel like you, how are you integrated into their kind of digital
with
marketing
social
strategy?
media?
Yeah,
it's the first show. So it's the first show that I've really not been allowed. I'm allowed to have opinion on all the shows I do. Yeah. But you know, when I did shows like The X Factor, I can't say, oh, that person was better than the last person because it was a talent competition. Yeah. But I think it's really, I like getting involved with having an opinion about what the Islanders do. I also like being a voice for them when they don't have one. You know, we had examples where Zara, who was Miss Great Britain, they took her crown away, and she didn't know because she was in there. We did eventually tell her. But I could be her voice because I do feel like I am their older sister in a way, and I'm there to give advice. But also, I love seeing all the memes, I love seeing all the tweets, and I just get involved with it online because I think people like it. It's nice. It's nice to be like that rather than just sit on the fence and go, So yeah, I like to get involved.
That's where After Sun is so good because that gives you that forum to do that. Whereas on the main show, when you go in, you have to be sort of much more objective.
I was dying to give Camilla a cuddle. That time when she'd just been crying and I walked into the villa and naturally as girl to girl you want to go over and tell her everything's going to be okay, but I couldn't, you know, because it would give the game away.
And then when you were on After Sun and obviously you see Johnny, did you want to wallop him?
I did. I do feel quite bad because I really went in, but not too bad. But you know, I wanted to come from the point of view that the viewers are all saying and ask him why he did the things he did. Bless him.
We don't like Johnny. We don't like Johnny. Okay, let's talk about the marketing presence. I want to know how important it was to have such a strong marketing presence throughout the show, because obviously you had daily promos over, was it 7 weeks?
Last year, yeah.
It was, to be honest with you, it was really quite difficult to avoid Love Island. It was everywhere. I went on a holiday on a cruise and people were talking about it on every beach that I went to. It was really quite interesting to show the impact, though, of how
Well, I know people on my team who said, I'm not taking my holiday until it's over because I can't afford, I don't want to be away.
Oh, wow.
Nutters, but anyway. Yeah, I mean,
they didn't want to miss it.
Yeah, they didn't want to miss it.
Wow.
And I think the daily preview that the digital team put out on social was amazing. I mean,
it got ridiculous views. Like we were reaching an average 1.1 million views a day, and then we peaked at like 3 million when we done Casa Amor. So it's just numbers we've never had.
And the timing of that was so important as well, because it would sort of hit at lunchtime and just at the point where sort of people had exhausted talking about the previous night's episode, and then suddenly it's about feeding the appetite. There was such an extraordinary appetite last year, and it was just finding different ways to feed that appetite.
There was definitely something unique that you'd done differently last year, though, from previous years, because or do you think
we don't think we did?
Really?
But absolutely, it's an evolution. Every single series has to be an evolution from the one before. But honestly, when I look back, what I will say is there was a jump between series 1 and series 2. But I would say that series 1 of any show that I've ever worked on or commissioned is effectively an on-air pilot, and you learn so much. And I think we went into series 2 with confidence. For me, that was the jump, not between series 2 and series 3.
Right.
And we've talked about it a lot, but
we have, haven't we? Because what did we do so different?
I know, because everyone seems to think there was some magic alchemy that happened.
Brought up, I think.
But also the other things that are happening in the world. There was a lot of doom and gloom last year.
Yeah, that's definitely
it was maybe escapism TV for people. Just it came at the right time. When
I'd never say thank you to Brexit.
But
but literally the figures just started going mental after that. I mean, I'd rather we hadn't Brexited, but anyway.
But I think
it goes for the 2 options.
Yeah,
that's true. That wasn't in the referendum. Brexit or Love Island.
I don't think anyone's going to switch off seeing really hot toned bodies either on telly, are they really? Is there anything you would have done differently? Or I suppose if there is, you'll be doing it this series, won't you?
And not for me. I think the thing that we have to get right from the get-go is the cast. You know, who could have predicted that a humanitarian bomb disposal expert would bloody go in as that person and walk out with a Calvin Klein underwear model? I mean, you couldn't write that story, could you? And we couldn't have predicted that story, because what we spend a lot of time doing, hilariously, is looking at the opening lineup and predicting all the storylines. And the one thing we know for sure is whatever we predict is absolutely what's not going to happen, because we can't predict what's going to happen. And actually the joy of it is because I think, to Tom's point earlier, when we cast, those people are genuinely looking for love. And so when that emotion takes over, the whole show almost takes a life of its own, doesn't it? And all we have to do is sort of shepherd it through the process and allow those stories to come out.
But also, to your point about what you do differently, I think you sort of do things differently within a series as you go along. It's the most agile format I've ever worked on. You know, I've worked on I'm a Celebrity for a few years, and that is, you sort of go into that knowing kind of what you've got a very clear plan of what's going to happen, whereas on this, as we said earlier, we genuinely don't. We have a blank whiteboard in the office, and
which is terrifying.
It's really terrifying.
Well, you sort of start with one, don't you?
Yeah.
Knowing that the objective is almost to throw it away. But
Yeah.
You sort of want some comfort of knowing where you might be going.
Yeah.
And post-its are constantly moving around, or the whiteboard's constantly changing. But that's the joy.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that not the buzz that actually drives you?
Yeah, but it requires a lot of confident producers who know what the hell they're doing in order to be able to make that happen. Because in different hands, the outcome would be completely different.
Yeah, and how many producers are on this show?
About 1 billion.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's certain elements where I was like, you know when you put the boys in the villa, and we took some naughty photos and then we sent over the postcard. I thought it was, I've just got to say my rant here, I thought it was so mean that you sent the postcard over so the girls could see what the boys had been up to, but you didn't show the reaction of the boys seeing the girls' poster. Things like that drive me nuts. Does it not bother you? I was like, I want to know.
They're the kind of things that people like to tweet.
Yeah, no, it was very good, very well produced. Okay, so I want to know, what was your favourite moment of Love Island from last series, Angela? We'll go down this way.
My God.
I'm sure you've got...
I mean, obviously, Stormzy. Now, what did Chris and Ken say? Oh, bollocks. What's the thing they said where they said, when they recognised Stormzy, they went, well, of course, we're quite big too, aren't we? But obviously, I loved Olivia saying Dixon. I loved Chris, Jason Statham. Do you remember that? Jason Statham. And I loved it, honestly, when they went out shopping and they were going, garlic, garlicchio. Like, it was just bonkers things like that, because those tiny little things, it's the attention to detail, suddenly take a life of their own, don't they? I mean, there's hundreds of good moments, but there's some of them.
I think mine had to be the postcard. It was just so big. Yeah. And it was really strange because I was actually involved in that, and I came in one morning, and it's just a testament to how much things change. Yeah. Walked in the office, had a post-it, see me in the office, I was like, oh shit, what's happening?
What have I done?
And it was Andy going, can you make me a postcard? What's a postcard for? And yeah, transpired that they needed to make that, and that went in, and just the impact it had. Even watching, we were all just glued to the live monitors in our offices as it was.
They kept
as
missing
happened.
it. They kept it got thrown under the door, and they kept walking past it. You have to go in and get it back out and then throw it back under the door again. It was infuriating.
Creeping down so they didn't see you.
When are they going to notice?
I loved Camilla's storyline, just the whole arc. And when Craig was in there desperately making his play, and I'm like, what are you doing? Just because you just want to grab the television and shake it when it's happening, because you feel like it's your sister, it's your best friend making a big mistake. So I think you're just there with them every step of the way.
Caroline, I'm sure you've got many.
All of it. It is all of it. Because I feel like each night you watch it, you go through the same emotions as when you watch a film. Every night you feel like you've watched a film. There was a moment, and it's not my favourite moment because I love Camilla, but I'm so glad that we can watch it on our mobile phones, because in Spain, there's no TV for me to watch it on, is there, in the hotel? And I have to keep up. So I've got my phone, and they've only got Wi-Fi in the lobby. So I'm watching Camilla and Johnny break up on my own in a hotel lobby, crying, and the hotel receptionist is just like, who is this girl? What's she doing? So that sticks out to me not as a nice moment, but such a memorable moment for the show. And I loved when they do their declarations at the end. That gets me every time, goosebumps. Yeah.
It's really hard. I think the Stormzy moment probably was amazing.
That's my favourite.
I also think the return of Muggy Mike and
Oh my
that sent a shiver down my spine.
Yeah.
And that was another one.
Also, I love the fact that Muggy Mike has adopted the moniker. Muggy Mike. He was actually called Mike.
Yeah.
But he now refers to himself as Muggy Mike.
He's owning that with pride.
Exactly.
But that was another example of where we were really unsure. We'd always said, across the 3 series, we would never put anyone back in, that once they'd left, that was it. And again, that was where we thought, okay, well, if we're going to do this, it has to be sanctioned. And so then you put it to a vote, and everyone desperately wanted to do it. And that was, and when the vote result came in, and it was like, okay, this is definitely the right thing to do. And the reaction in the villa was so amazing.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. I can't wait for the next series. Right, let's open it up to some questions to you guys. Put your hands up if you want to ask a question. Okay, straight at the back there. Just wait while we grab the mic. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Victory. I'm a television production student at the University of Westminster. Fantastic show. Loved every little bit of it. Just like Caroline was saying, I was always on my phone checking it, and then like, Victory, get back to work. I'm like, oh darn it. I just want to ask, when you're talking about like the people who weren't your average Joes in the show, like Camilla and Montana, has that like changed your perception as to casting, like as to who to cast and?
I think it's reinforced to us what we know is that there absolutely need to be some surprising cast members there. People you're not expecting to see, in Camilla and Montana, for example, are two great examples of that. So I think it's given us confidence that we can, but you never want to do the same thing again, by the way. So it's just about making sure that we have enough of a constituent cast that feels like they are absolutely heart and soul Love Island, and then a certain percentage of it that feels like genuinely new to telly, genuinely surprising, I think.
Because I think we have the ability to do that on Love Island, which I don't know that other shows necessarily do have. If you're casting for Towie or Made in Chelsea, then you've got a pool that you're casting from.
Of course, yeah, don't forget it's an ongoing casting process.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, it's not like Big Brother, you sign off your opening 12 and go, oh shit, we have to live with them for the next 7 weeks. We know that we can continuously cast, so that really creates a different momentum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it also means that your sort of opening lineup almost in some respects needs to be slightly different to the people that might come in later but need to almost have a bigger impact.
Yeah, definitely.
So it sort of creates really huge opportunities for us, actually.
Yeah. I guess also because now you've seen a Camilla, you've seen a Montana on screen, people like that now know that there is a space for them on Love Island, so the people that you get that are willing to be considered. Change.
And not just people like that, but all sorts of people have come forward that I would never have expected to
The last
be
we're going to do
sat.
is cast another Camilla and
No,
Montana.
exactly.
Although I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that casting room. Anybody else? Oh, over here. Hi.
Hello, hi. My name's Dean. I'm a freelance AP. I just wanted to ask, I know Richard, the creative director, last year in the Times said that there might be a gay Love Island and then repeated it again at the BAFTAs last week. I wanted to know, would ITV ever commission such a theory? Is there an appetite for one, and do you think you'd be able to produce one? Or can we kill it dead now?
Well, we sort of can't answer the would ITV commission because that's not in our gift. Well, I mean, look, anything's possible. It's a show that will evolve and live and breathe and change. And obviously my hope is it's going to be on telly for the next 5 years at the very least, and there'll be 10 series of it. So who knows where it will go.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more? Yep, this lady here at the front.
Hello, I work in the strategy team at Sky Sports actually, but my question is, what can other shows learn from the success of Love Island? For example, you mentioned how the digital team were kind of fully integrated into the linear production team. Would that be the biggest thing, or other?
I think for me, yeah, absolutely, that would be the biggest thing, because I think that dialogue and that you know, the digital team approach it from a different point of view, and that's not a point of view that I necessarily have that much experience of. So that dialogue between Kenny's team and us as a group of execs and all the producers is so valuable. And then I guess the other thing is that engagement, and I don't know that there's an absolute recipe for how you generate that sort of engagement. I don't know that there is, but I think it is a lot about what you guys in the digital team do and how you draw people into that conversation.
I think the biggest lesson I've learned as well is you have to be patient if you want success.
Yeah.
Success doesn't come overnight. Yeah. And if anyone remembers, if anyone watched the first series, that was not a hit out of the park at all. And that could so easily have got cancelled second series, and it didn't. And so much of what happens now when you're taking risks is everyone's trying to de-risk everything. And actually you can't have a big success if you're not patient for the success.
Because I think one of the reasons that actually Series 3 was such a success was that by the end of Series 2, it was getting there, and then people came back to Series 3 who had loved Series 2 and brought their friends. And I think that...
And you totally did something differently as well, I know you did. You did. Anyone else?
Hi.
Yep.
How do you watch all of the footage and then edit it in time for the next day?
That's all Tom does.
Just you beavering away.
We have 12 edit suites running 24 hours a day. We have about 200 crew out there. We have a team of loggers in the gallery. We have dozens.
How many fixed cameras do we have?
70.
Yeah, I was 70 fixed cameras. Honestly,
it's a mammoth
it
production.
is mammoth. It is huge, and you can't. Yeah, and you can't deliver 7 weeks. What's 42 episodes of a show unless you've got a bit of a machine making it happen. You have to have that.
And an incredibly talented. I mean,
yeah, they're amazing. And honestly, the best
team.
piece of advice I can give anybody, if you're looking for the recipe for a hit show, is employ the bloody best people you know on that show. Because honestly, these shows, and everyone always says it, but they are nothing without the teams of people that make it happen.
And for the young people in the audience that would love to work in factual entertainment, any advice for them? Entering into the industry?
Kiss
who
your life
aspire
goodbye.
to work on this show? well, that's the point, because it's quite intense. Kenny,
Yeah, it's
how
very
many months?
Look,
have you been
listen,
in Mallorca?
when you're working on a hit show, there's nothing else like it. It's such an amazing feeling. You know, I remember the first series. I've got a couple of kids. I remember all the parents were like, "Oh God, what are you doing?" I went, "Oh God, I'm going to make Love Island." By the third series, they're all going, "Oh my God, so you know what happened last night?" I'm like, "Oh my God, it's changed, hasn't it?" And so actually the fact that everybody wants to talk about it, the fact that you are responsible for something that is really making people happy, making people talk about it, making people shout at the telly because they don't agree, there's nothing else like it. So if you want to work in factual entertainment and you can get yourself anywhere near a hit, there's honestly nothing like it.
Okay. Any more questions? Oh, loads. But can I just go to, yep, that guy there, thank you.
Hi, it's Andy. I'm a journalist from The Sun.
Oh no, what I said before, I didn't mean it.
No comment.
Sorry. How do you avoid someone, obviously people going into the show looking for love, now it's a bit more mainstream, how are you going to avoid people who just want to become famous?
Yeah, but I suppose that goes to the point that we were saying earlier, but...
No,
you answer it, Tom.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that that's the beauty of the format in many ways, because I think that the viewers, I hope, will be looking for that as much as we are. That you know, sort of what we ask of the viewers is that they look at those relationships and sort of work out which ones they do think are real. You know, at the heart of the format is who's there for love and who is playing a game. And so I think that hopefully the show itself will figure out who those people are, and potentially they won't necessarily last the distance in the same way.
But the skill of a casting team comes into play here as well, because what they have to do is try and suss out at the very first point whether they think someone is clearly a wannabe and has got an ulterior motive, or doesn't. And by the way, that doesn't exclude somebody who is a wannabe, if that makes any sense, because there might be a legitimate reason for them to be on the show. But, you know, that's where your casting team can really help hone down on the people and create a pool that feels feels really exciting. The casting team on the show are absolutely brilliant.
And I think the most interesting thing is that people who come into that casting room absolutely feel that they have a really good chance of finding love on that show, genuinely. And it's because, and there obviously have been couples that have come out of the villa and they haven't lasted, but there are, the Camilla and
Jamie are still together.
Oh,
it's amazing, isn't it?
Caroline, you've seen so many. Oh, hello. Sorry, you've seen so many couples come and go. Who's been your favourite couple?
So many for so many different reasons, but I think Alex and Olivia, for me, I loved Olivia so much. I think All Girls Again, once we related to her, and she had her moments in the villa, she had ups, she had her downs, and then she ended up walking away with Alex. And I think a lot of us were really dubious about the relationship as well. We were like, oh, it's not going to last. And they kind of had, they have, and they're getting married.
Yeah,
and it's real love.
Okay, more questions? This lady here. Jamie?
I was wondering, I'm a researcher and super fan. The best thing about last series was when we were going to get like an extra long episode. And, like, how quickly do you know that you're going to do that? Because that was like,
that's such a brilliant question. Because if only you actually knew.
Yeah, it's pretty last minute. I mean, it really is just a case of we sit down, we view at 9:30 in the morning on the day of TX, and the decision gets made. I mean, the great thing is, and this goes back to when Angela was at ITV2, we're able to be flexible.
Yeah.
And so if we turn around at the end of that viewing and feel like we have enough content, then we will just say, can it be a 75 tonight? But that puts a huge amount of strain on because we're designed to produce an hour-long show, and actually trying to do that extra part and those extra minutes is quite a big ask.
And you don't want to do it too often because, it runs at 60 minutes, i.e. 47 for a good reason. And also we've got lots of mouths to feed. So, you want to make the best show possible. So as Tom said, you only do it when you feel you've got another story to tell and it's worth doing. Otherwise, the worst thing we could do is just be accused of stretching it out. We don't want to do that at all.
Is the guy behind the lady there?
Yeah. Hi, so I work in research. Congrats on the show, obviously a huge success. It sounds like it was a lightning in the bottle moment. You'd obviously kind of repeated some of the strategies you'd used before, and you really found you'd hit the mark this year. Part of it also you said was kind of there was a sort of a fun escapism factor to the show, and at a time that was kind of quite crazy politically, socially outside of it, it probably was a nice escapism. So that sort of level of like unpredictability outside the show, you can never really be sure of what's going to happen next year. But what ways within the show and all the digital strategies, the narratives you're telling, can you kind of sort of try and put your best foot forward against what you can't predict, if that makes sense? It's a lot of things in there, sorry.
I suppose I maintain that all we are trying to do every day is make the very best show possible. And sometimes, like you say, you've got no control over the external factors. And to that case in point, we didn't, and then it had an impact on the viewing figures. That's out of our control. We have to remain focused on all of us pulling together, making the best show possible. And part of what helps that, I think, is the lack of formulaicness, if that's even a sentence, to the show. So all of that unpredictability just means that if you're watching it one night, you feel like you need to watch it the following night. In fact, actually, interestingly, the hugest amount of traffic to the hub to watch catch up is at 8 o'clock before the 9 o'clock show. So that's all those people going, and I would have thought we just missed one, wouldn't you? They were going, no, shit, I need to see it before the next one at 9 o'clock. And so that probably tells us something quite interesting as well, that it has become, for those people that are watching it, and let's not forget, not everybody's watching it, but for those people who are watching it, they are really, really deeply engaged with the show, and they want as much as they can get of it.
Okay, striped up shirt there.
Hiya, it's Frances from Radio Times. I've got a couple of questions. The first one mainly for Angela and Tom. I mean, the success of last year's show has meant there's so much hype behind this upcoming series. How much pressure do you feel?
I don't feel any pressure. Can I just say, I think, look, we've got an unblemished track record when it comes to awards season, right? Every single award we've been up for, we've won this year. That totally gives me confidence that we know what we're doing. That doesn't mean arrogance and we should sit back, but it gives us confidence to know we know what we're doing, we've just got to do more of the same and surprise me. It doesn't, of course there's pressure, but if you worry about, it's even a truth in real life, isn't it? If you worry too much about all those external pressures you haven't got any control over, you lose sight of what you're supposed to be doing. We know what we're supposed to be doing, and I hope we know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think that gives us confidence because the format itself hasn't changed over 3 years. So really we are still, you know, yes, it evolved between Series 1 and 2, but actually Series 2 and Series 3, we're throwing different things in, we're doing different things, but the way we make the show is absolutely the same. So I sort of take heart from that really and know that we just got to do that again. And also because I do think it's a really, it's the very fact that internationally it's sort of working. It is a format that works when you put people in that environment and you watch those. Everyone's fascinated with everyone else's relationships. I think that's what it draws you to it. And so you've got a new cast and a whole lot of new people to get to know and then watch their love lives. So it feels like, you know.
Even this sort of mechanism of the game show element of it, the coupling up, all of that, it gives you an overarching, obviously, narrative, which is really helpful, but then that builds within it a ton of flexibility. So you sort of, the viewers know where we're going, they just don't quite know how they're going to get there, and that's the most exciting kind of trip, isn't it? Yeah. Other than one with actual drugs.
Angela.
Sorry.
And for record, you've won an RTS award, you've won a broadcast award, and you've won a BAFTA.
And a Trick Award.
Oh yeah, and a hat trick, yeah. Congratulations. Okay, just here.
Yeah, this has been an amazing success for ITV2. I mean, has it got too big for ITV2? Did I hear you say that it might be going to ITV1?
No, I don't think anybody said that. I think what it is obviously a very perfectly formed show for ITV2. It hits their key demographic. It means for the first time ever in ITV2's history, it was the biggest digital channel for 16 to 34s, and that's normally been the Preserver V4. So in a way, it is the very biggest show on exactly the right channel. Where it goes and who decides what they want to do with it is out of our control. But, you know, it does feel like a perfect fit at the moment.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, just one. There's two more at the back there. Right for time.
Hi there. Mine's mainly for Kenny. Have there been any advancements in like the social digital landscape over the past year where you've been so excited to test out for Love Island? So, for instance, like the GIFs on Instagram, I can just see like a Dr. Marcel GIF being used in stories and stuff like that.
It's actually quite interesting this year because we've got a new problem that we've never had to deal with, which is through the success of selling things internationally, things such as GIFs, we're starting to see where we're searching Love Island, we're now not just getting our own content, which is obviously what the audience is looking for. So this year, that's been a big thing of how do we make sure that people, are when they're searching and using their stuff in WhatsApp, that they find our content. Not sure we know the answer to it yet, but we're going to try and find it out as the series goes on.
You've only got a week or so to work it out, Kenny.
I work late tomorrow. Yeah, it's just that's a new challenge for us specifically. It's not necessarily a positive one. Yeah.
Nice problem to have, though, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, back here.
So, without naming any names, has the success of Marcel encouraged any other Naughties band members to audition?
Has it? No, has it? That's what I'm saying, has it?
Couldn't possibly say. Find out.
There were a lot of people in Blazing Squad, though. Let's not forget.
Okay, last question, just back there.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. I'm a student of film at the University of Reading, and I was just wondering, do you ever sort of plan the content of like the games and the challenges for sort of maximum destruction? For example, like last year with Olivia and Chris, like they were going so well, and then there was just a massive bombshell, like right when they were sort of doing well. So I just wondered, are they sort of one of the post-it notes that you sort of swap around that you were talking about earlier?
We go into it, I think Angela said, we go into it with a bank of, like a toolkit, a bank of ideas. And yeah, we've got a whole collection of challenges, format points, new arrivals that we think may at some point be the right thing to throw in for whatever reason. And then it is just down to timing, and it is just down to what. But ultimately, everything is justified because it's about testing those relationships. That was the beauty of Casa Amor last year, that it was sort of the ultimate relationship test, because you were suddenly throwing a load of temptation in with them. And so it's looking for all of the different things that are going to find ways to pick out the fault lines in a relationship and test them and see who's going to find, who's going to be able to pick themselves up at the other side of it and be stronger.
Fantastic. Well, please put your hands together for our amazing panel.